Hello, I'm J.R. McGee, and I'm the Geopolitical and Middle Eastern Affairs Advisor for Pennsylvania Faith Coalition and Turning Point USA for here in Pennsylvania. There's a couple of different missions that I have in putting together these series of talks with you. One is to help individuals such as yourself understand what's going on and how it affects us as Christians and as Americans. The second part of my mission is a little bit more involved, and that is to help explain the why. The news media always tells us what, but it almost never discusses the why. It doesn't help us understand why things are happening or why people do what they do. And ironically, that is often the heart of the story. One of the things that I want to do in these sessions with you is to help explain that why so we understand exactly what's going on in context. Let's take, for example, why is America so focused on areas outside the United States? Shouldn't we spend all of our time and all of our money simply taking care of Americans and American communities? Well, yes and no. We cannot exist outside the entire global community. All of those things affect us. They affect us daily. They affect our pocketbook, they affect our families, they affect decisions that we may make. Let's talk about why that is. All my life, I've heard people say, follow the money. Money drives the world. Money is everything. In fact, the Bible tells us the root of all evil is the love of money. It says specifically the love of money is the root of all evil, not money itself, but the love of money. And so everyone wants to follow the money. But that's not what drives the economy. That's not what drives politics. That's not what drives the world. Ironically, it's one thing that almost no one talks about, and that is energy. Energy drives everything. Without energy, everything comes to a screeching halt, to include money and finance. Money and finance is a result of the application of energy. So when energy is involved, it creates wealth, it creates finance, it creates economies. And energy is incredibly important to us. And we take it for granted because we can just go to the local gas station and buy gas. We flip on a switch and our lights come on. We turn on the furnace and our houses are heated almost without thought. And we take energy for granted. The electricity coming through the wires, the fuel coming through the pumps, and everything that we do is driven by energy. Our computers, our electronics, our manufacturing, our services, our hospitals, our banking, everything is driven by energy. And ironically, the vast majority of energy since the 1970s has come from the Middle East. That's exactly why the Middle East has been so important to the United States for so long. Now, as of the last couple of years, and the drill baby drill philosophy, America has become the largest exporter of energy on the planet. In fact, as of today, the United States exports more oil than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. That's enormous. But yet, we cannot ignore the energy from the rest of the world because the energy in the Middle East still drives Europe. It still drives China. It still drives the majority of the other countries in the world. And when one country threatens that stability, it affects all of us. That is precisely why today we're in Iran. We're trying to deal with the Iranian threat. Now, for 19 years, Iran was my area of responsibility in the world of counterterrorism, electronic warfare, and information warfare. I do speak some Farsi. I've worked with Iranians, and for over a year, I lived in a barracks room with one other American and four Iranian Air Force officers. This was before the Shah fell. Yes, I'm old enough. I was working in the 1970s. And before the Shah fell, we were very tightly integrated with the Iranian military and the Iranian government. And I'm here to tell you, the Iranian people are wonderful. I love the Iranian people. In fact, I am still very close friends with many Iranian people. Their government, however, has been taken over by radical Islamists and religious figures, and they have a completely different agenda than the Iranian people do. In fact, the Iranian agenda believes religiously it is their obligation to start a world war so that that will trigger the return of who they call the Mahdi or the 12th Imam. That return of the Imam creates a world war that results in Islam becoming the dominant religion in the world. So Iran believe, or I should say, the Iranian leadership believes they have an obligation to start a war to usher in the return of their Messiah, who they call the Mahdi. And they're using oil and terrorism in order to control other aspects and other elements of the economy and other governments in order to create the environment so that that war begins to be triggered. That's exactly what's going on today. It is about a religious belief and it's about energy. And where those two areas intersect, bad things can happen. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So, why is this important to us? It's important to us because China receives about 10% of all of their oil from Iran. They received another 19% of their oil from Venezuela. They buy other oil products and oil reserves from other Middle Eastern countries. But Iran is playing a very large role in the Chinese economy. And the Straits of Hormuz is where 1/5 of all energy in the entire world is transported. Whoever controls that controls energy to the vast majority of the major economies in the world. All of these things are tying together in ways that affect us daily. It affects you personally. It affects you specifically. The fact that we don't see that doesn't mean that it doesn't affect us. It means that we're decoupled and isolated from cause and effect. But if that dries up, what you will see is prices spike. Right now, we're seeing the cost of gas go up, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Fertilizer is also made out of fuel oil, and fertilizer is what drives agriculture. And a lot of products out of Europe, out of the Middle East, out of China, out of many other countries are generated as a byproduct of oil out of the Middle East. When those products become scarce, and they are, that's going to drive food prices through the roof. If this is not resolved and resolved shortly, we're going to begin to see escalating inflationary impacts across everybody's economy, but predominantly Russia and China and Europe. Let's talk just a little bit about China and why China is so important in all this. China is an ascending power. Now, I'm a student of history. I'm a student of military history. In fact, both of my advanced degrees, I have a degree in strategic leadership and a degree in strategic thinking for my advanced degrees. And as you understand what's going on, as you understand how these things relate, it begins to form a clearer picture that's not obvious in listening to the news because, once again, the news media is focused on telling you what is happening today. And they very seldom tie anything that they're talking about into next week, next month, or next year, or even 10 years from now. And that's the big picture. That's the complexity. Where is this going? What are the strategies that people are using in order to make decisions to put these things into play, and how are these things working together? As you may or may not know, Donald Trump is going to be meeting with Xi Jinping, who is the president of China, the chairman of China, in the very near future, and they're trying to work out some understandings with each other. China is being very involved with Iran, and China is very involved with Russia. Russia is involved with Iran. All of these these things are being tied together to control energy. It all goes back to energy. Energy drives economies. Energy drives money. When energy dries up, economies dry up, money dries up, everything comes to a stop. Now, as an ascending power, China is growing. China is developing. China has gotten on top of their manufacturing curve, and they're beginning to be able to manufacture sophisticated products. In the 10, 15 years ago, things out of China were not very high quality. And it was very high volume, low complexity, low quality. That's where you went to have those made, was in China. Today, China is being very aggressive at developing very sophisticated technologies to manufacture high quality, high complexity, high technology parts. But they're very dependent on oil. China does not have hardly any oil reserves in their own country. They have to import almost all of their energy from other countries. That's a dramatic vulnerability for China. Something else, I hear a lot of people tell me that China is becoming dominant on the world stage and the United States needs China. That's what the news media would have you believe. That's what a lot of the pundits and the political figures would have you believe. I don't think that's quite true, and here's why. Xi Jinping has just gone through a major purge where he's fired a large number of his generals and his admirals in the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. He's gone through a purge of the political leaders. He is the dictator for life. He is the number one person. He's not in danger of being replaced. But yet, he feels the need to get rid of a lot of his friends, the people he has grown up with, the people who he's depended upon. That does not speak to me of strength. Strategically, that speaks of weakness, insecurity, and fear. You don't get rid of people that you trust. You don't get rid of people you depend on. You don't get rid of people that you need to be successful. You get rid of people that you think are a threat. You get rid of people who are not performing, or you get rid of people that you don't think can do the job or may have a different agenda than your agenda that may be working against you. That's exactly what's going on in China today. And China also has a secondary problem, and that is their unemployment for their youth. People aged 35 and younger is extraordinarily high, incredibly high. It is a catastrophe. Their unemployment for young people is massive, and that is creating an enormous amount of unrest in China. And they're not moving into factory jobs. They're wanting to get involved in a service economy. They want to have the money to go buy goods and services like the Americans do and the Europeans do, but there's no jobs for the young people. The Chinese economy is struggling. On the outside, it looks vibrant. It looks strong. You poke on it, you look on the inside, and it is not in good shape whatsoever. China is in serious trouble. Their military, they are building a military faster than any military has been built in history. They're building more ships, more planes, more tanks than any other country's ever built, with the exception of during World War II. But they're even approaching that. But yet, having numbers doesn't necessarily mean that the Chinese have the capability to use that equipment either strategically, tactically, or professionally. Their skill level with the material is falling behind their technological level of the material. Now, all of this plays together to tell me that China is not nearly in as strong a position as they would lead you to believe. And that instability, combined with the instability in Iran and the instability in Russia, because Russia's bogged down in a war with Ukraine, that instability is where problems develop on the world stage. And then, frankly, that's where this could devolve into something as serious as World War III. We have to pay attention to it. Here's how this affects you and affects me and affects our families. We have to hold people accountable. We have to make sure that people have a plan. We have to make sure that we follow through with what we're going to go do. We can't stop in the middle. We can't start an initiative and then pull the rug out from somebody for pure political reasons. We have to follow through with what we say we're going to go do, or the instability throughout this whole system will degenerate into a major war unlike anything you have seen in your lifetime and most of us have seen in our lifetimes. I think as we work our way through this, as we watch this, please pay attention to how energy is flowing, who's controlling the oil, where is the oil, who has the oil. And it's not just oil, it's gas, liquid natural gas, it's petroleum products in general, it's coal, natural gas, it's all the forms of energy that are abundant, that are semi clean, nothing is perfect, but whoever controls energy is going to control the world. They're going to control economies. They're going to control finance because whoever has energy, those are the people who print money. And when you print money, those are the people who buy control. That's the way this works. It's not the other way around. Money doesn't drive this, energy drives this. Money is simply the symptom and the root cause for a lot of this. So I hope this helps you understand why some of these things are going on. I want to speak to you more in future sessions about why some of these things are happening. And if you've got questions, please send those in to the Pennsylvania Faith Coalition. I'm more than willing to take questions from you and put together answers. In fact, if you want to be on a show with me, contact us and perhaps you can ask me questions live. I would be very willing to go do that. Whatever I can do to help people understand how this is all working, how it ties together, why it's important, and why we should care, that's what I want to go do. But above all, pray. Get involved. Go vote. Be engaged. No one will allow you to keep your freedom. You have to make people leave your freedom alone. Thank you very much. God bless, and have a great week.